Welcome back to another episode of, I don't even have a joke for this one if you can call the previous ones jokes. This time we're going to talk about another kind of older show, not like super old because it's still in the last couple of years, but it's not particularly recent, I guess. I'm only talking about it because, like Outlaw Star, I just finished a rewatch of it not too long ago, and once again I don't know why I'm keeping you in suspense. We're going to talk about Kill la Kill. Kill la Kill, I just want to preface this by saying that it is kind of partially responsible for getting me into anime in the first place in the last couple of years. I watched it sort of on a whim last year, and I liked it and just kind of kept watching anime. So that's why I'm in this position now. Blame Kill la Kill for everything that I've done over the last month or so. But odds are you've probably seen or at least aware of Kill la Kill, just considering that it's kind of a big show. It was sort of a big deal. Done by Studio Trigger, which I'm good at English. Is made up of some former Gainax employees. Gainax does a lot of, I think they're mostly known kind of for mech sort of things. I'm not particularly, what's the right word I'm thinking? I'm not particularly knowledgeable about Gainax's overall repertoire. Like, I know Gurren Lagann, and I know Panty and Stocking, and then there's definitely other things that I just don't know about. But I know Gainax is a pretty major company. But some of the team split off of Gainax, if I recall correctly, and formed Trigger a couple years ago. And now Trigger is their own thing. And I just want to say, I love Trigger. I've seen a good chunk of the shows they've made, and I have loved every single one of them. So, spoilers for what I think of Kill la Kill. Trigger knows how to make fun things, and Kill la Kill is no exception. Kill la Kill is a very fun kind of show, despite how, I don't want to say dark, because it doesn't really get dark at any point, but it deals with some iffy themes a couple times. But throughout it all, it's still a very enjoyable show to watch. The thing to immediately mention about Kill la Kill is it's real fan servicey, like fan service out the window kind of fan servicey. But as I went over in the Monogatari video, fan service personally, it doesn't usually bother me unless you use it as an excuse to make a terrible thing, and you're just like, all right, well, the fan service will sell it. Girls Bravo did that. Girls Bravo is terrible and just kind of sells itself on, we've got nudity, which doesn't work for a thing. But Kill la Kill sort of uses fan service to just uses fan service sort of as a plot element almost, because there is a reason in universe as to why it exists and why Ryuko's outfit looks the way it does. And even if it didn't, honestly, the show, there's so much fan service that eventually you just sort of become numb to it, and it's just a thing in the series that you don't really pay attention to. And even without the fan service, it would still be a great show. So, yeah, if like that is a pretty common complaint that I see, is that it's really fan servicey, and it is certainly, but I don't think it's really an issue, especially considering like I said, there is a reason in universe as to why the outfits look the way they do, and why a lot of characters are naked quite often. However you choose to pronounce that. I said it both ways so that I make everybody mad. But past the fan service, I do feel the need to point out that writing-wise, Kill la Kill probably isn't that super strong. Like, it's not a masterpiece. I like it a lot, but if you were to judge it on its actual story quality, it's above average, I feel, but it's not an amazing. It's not it's not an epic, really. It tells a solid story that knows what it wants to do, with some bumpy bits here and there. The beginning, I've heard from a handful of people that it's a little episodic and samey in the beginning. Personally, I don't mind that. I'm fine with episodic things, so long as you're not actually attempting to have a story and you end up episodic. And Kill la Kill kind of is that way in that it's more setting up its story in the beginning. It's not having its story and ended up being episodic, like, say, Kamen Rider Ghost. But it is kind of bumpy with its writing occasionally. The one thing that I'd say is probably the biggest issue personally is, and this is like really more of a nitpick than an actual problem, but the amount of times throughout the show that Ryuko gives up or is willing to give up for any reason is kind of frustrating. It happens, I think, like 4 or 5 times, something like that, around that number, and it just sort of gets, you know, the first couple times you're like, all right, you know, horrible things happened, you maybe, you know, lose your way, as it were, by that point. But by the last time it happens, you're just like, okay, now I'm tired of this, and it needs to stop. It's an issue that I have with the show, but it's not a major, you know, deal breaker. It's still, I still very much enjoyed the show. Mostly I enjoyed it because it is, as I mentioned way earlier, completely insane. This is a series where there is a talking sailor uniform that allows the user to transform into a skimpy, almost cheerleader kind of outfit, wherein she uses a scissor blade to cut other people's clothes off and then absorbs part of them into her own outfit. Said outfit then later transforms into like a ship and then this weird supersonic thing. Kill la Kill is insane and it's amazing. Trigger, if you have seen their stuff, you know that Trigger likes just kind of being weird. And that's why I like them, is because they just like to have fun with everything, and Kill la Kill is not an exception. It's a total blast. And what really helps sell the sort of energetic, almost kind of comic booky feel of it is the art style. It's kind of rough, like it's not a finely detailed, finely animated kind of thing. It's a really rough, almost sketchy kind of art style, but I think it moves so well and it works, like it's animated so well that it looks still very good despite sometimes looking unfinished and a little basic. And then especially on the Blu-rays, there are some points when it looks genuinely beautiful. I don't know if I'll not be lazy enough to try to find the screenshots, like the specific ones I mean, but sometimes it does look very nice. Although the scratchy part of the art style helps a lot with the fights. That's something Trigger is very good at with their action shows. That the team did very well with Gurren Lagann was the fights. They know how to do fighting a lot better than some Toku shows can do. Another thing that I just kind of want to mention that I don't really like about the show, and this is not really a thing like recurring, or it kind of is, but it's more a character. Tsumugu, or as I like to call him, Chicken Head, because his hair reminds me of like a chicken. I hate him. I hate him a lot because his whole thing, his whole life fibers are stupid thing, granted, comes from a halfway decent place that I'm not going to talk about because spoilers, although if you haven't seen Kill la Kill, you really should. It's like 3 years old. There's a decent reason in his backstory why it exists, but it's the sort of blanket applying it to every situation, it'll always end up like this kind of thing that is frustrating. And I get that that's what his character is supposed to be. Like, he's not a bad character. He's a pretty good character. But I hate him so much, and he bugs me every time he shows up on screen. And then there's a point about, I want to say in the final third or so of the show, when he's pretty much willing to kill their only chance at actually winning. I guess just because he's actually an idiot. And then a minor detail, sort of back to the animation. I'm jumping around a little bit because I'm bad at keeping on a pattern. Going back to the animation a little bit, a little detail that I enjoyed was in the whenever there's a flashback, it's all in like 4:3, and there's no real reason to do that, but I just like that. It's just a cool little detail to show that it is a flashback without necessarily needing to do the 5 years previous, and without doing the thing that so many other shows do, which is just kind of having a sort of white border around things. It's a way to make it look interesting, and they give it this like reddish filter. It looks really nice. And then the last thing I want to mention is the soundtrack. The soundtrack was done by Sawano Hiroyuki, and he does a really good job giving this sort of, a lot of time it's almost kind of a techno sort of sound, and other times it's rock. It's got a lot of different vibes to it, and every song is very good, Although you'll find if you have the actual soundtrack, a lot of the track names are weird and it can be hard to figure out which one is which. Like there's one called like Kiryu 7LL, and it's weird. There's a lot of strange track names. There's ones that make sense, like Before My Body Is Dry, otherwise known as the meme song that everybody took away from this show. The vocal themes, speaking of which, are few but very good. I think in the entirety of the soundtrack there's Suck Your Blood, Blumenkrauss, and Before My Body Is Dry, and I think those are the only vocal themes. Actually, Sanbika, technically, which is an insert song, but it's not on the soundtrack. The soundtrack is, like I said, pretty good. The official releases of it are incomplete. There's, at least I'm pretty sure they are, because there's a couple different versions of Before My Body Is Dry that play in the show that are not on the soundtrack, and that's a thing that always bugs me, but it's not super important. The point is, the music is good and you should listen to it. Even if you saw the show and didn't like it, listen to the soundtrack outside of the show, and it is amazing. But yeah, at the end of the day, I really, really like Kill la Kill. It's hard for me to pick a favorite anime overall, but if you, like, made me choose, it'd probably be Kill la Kill, honestly, just because of how enjoyable it is to watch. Granted, that could change in about a week, because sometimes I think it's one of the Monogatari shows, but Kill la Kill is up there. It's one of my favorites, and that's definitely not me being biased because it helped me get into anime or anything. If you haven't seen Kill la Kill and you're kind of turned off by the amount of fan service, give it a shot. I think you'll probably end up enjoying it if you liked Gurren Lagann. I might do a video on Gurren Lagann at some point. But personally, I think, even though they're not particularly easy shows to compare because they're trying to do different things, I personally prefer Kill la Kill to Gurren Lagann. I think the team did a much better job on Kill la Kill. There's a lot of things about Gurren Lagann that bug me, as good as the show as that is. There are fewer things about Kill la Kill that bug me. But that's a tale for another time. Kill la Kill is good and you should watch it if you haven't. But that is about going to do it for this video. If you enjoyed it, then you can subscribe and hopefully be notified when I upload a new one. But if you're not notified by YouTube, then I post them on Twitter. Plus a bunch of other random stuff I put on Twitter, which is in the description below, along with a couple of other links. And if you want to check out some of the other videos that I've done, then on screen right now are two of my previous ones. One of them is the last video I did, which is Let's Talk About Monogatari, and I'm not sure what the other one is because I haven't picked it yet, so it's a surprise. That's all for now, and I will see you guys next time.